The Animals were a huge band until Chaz heard Jimi Hendrix play one song. He quit everything. His confession will break you. September 1966, New York City. Chaz Chandler was exhausted. As bass player for The Animals, he just finished another grueling American tour. The band had achieved everything musicians dream of, hit records like House of the Rising Sun and Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood, sold-out shows across America and Europe, fame, money, screaming fans. They'd been on The Ed Sullivan Show. They toured with the Rolling Stones. They were one of the biggest British invasion bands alongside the Beatles and the Who. But Chaz was done. 5 years of constant touring, creative differences with the band, watching their manager Mike Jeffrey systematically steal their money through shady contracts and offshore accounts, fighting over musical direction. It had all become too much. The dream had turned into a nightmare of business meetings, legal disputes, and exhaustion. "I'm quitting," Chaz told his bandmates during a tense meeting in their New York hotel. "After this tour, I'm done with performing. I'm moving into management and production." The other Animals were shocked. Eric Burden, their lead singer, tried to talk him out of it. "Chaz, we need you. You're the foundation of this band. The bass, the arrangements, that's all you." But Chaz was made up. He was 27 years old and burned out. He'd achieved everything a bass player could achieve, and it felt hollow. "I want off the road," he said. "I want to create something, help someone else the way nobody helped us when we were starting out. I'm done being the hired gun."
But before leaving New York, Chaz decided to check out the Greenwich Village music scene one last time. A friend had told him about a guitarist playing at a tiny club called Café Wah on McDougal Street. "You should hear this guy," the friend said. "He's different from anyone else." Chaz almost didn't go. He was tired, wanted to get back to his hotel, maybe catch a flight home to England early. But something made him walk down those stairs into Café Wah that September night. That decision would change his life and the history of rock music. Café Wah was a dump, literally a basement club on McDougal Street with terrible acoustics, cheap furniture held together with duct tape, a ceiling so low that tall people had to duck. The air was thick with cigarette smoke and the smell of cheap beer. The stage was barely big enough for a three-piece band. Musicians practically stood shoulder to shoulder. This was as far from the arenas the Animals played as you could get. This was where careers went to die, not where they were born. The guitarist was already on stage when Chaz walked in, mid-song. He was playing with his back to the audience initially, wearing regular street clothes. Nothing flashy, just jeans and a shirt. Chaz grabbed a beer from the bar, warm and overpriced, and found a spot against the wall, not really paying attention. He'd seen 1,000 club guitarists. They were all the same, technically proficient but soulless, copying Clapton or Beck without understanding what made those players special. Then the guitarist turned around. Chaz saw a thin black man with a huge afro holding a white Fender Stratocaster that looked expensive, too expensive for a club like this. The man had long fingers, almost impossibly long, that seemed to wrap around the guitar neck in ways that shouldn't be anatomically possible. He looked at the audience, what little there was of it, and smiled shyly, then started playing. Chaz Chandler, who'd played with some of the best musicians in the world, who'd toured with Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley, and learned bass from watching James Jamerson, who thought he'd heard everything a guitar could do, froze with his beer halfway to his mouth. The guitarist was playing Hey Joe, a song Chaz knew well, but this wasn't how anyone else played it. The guitarist played lead and rhythm simultaneously, making the Stratocaster sound like 2 or 3 guitars at once. His fingers moved so fast they blurred. But it wasn't just speed, it was feel, emotion, storytelling through 6 strings. Chaz looked around the room, expecting everyone else to be as mesmerized as he was. Some people were watching, but most were talking, drinking, not really paying attention. Chaz couldn't believe it. How were they not seeing what he was seeing? 30 seconds. That's how long it took for Chaz Chandler to decide to change his entire life. He pushed through the small crowd to get closer to the stage. The guitarist was now playing behind his head, the Stratocaster upside down, and he wasn't missing a note. Chaz had seen gimmicks before. Plenty of guitarists did tricks to wow audiences. But this wasn't a gimmick. This was mastery so complete that playing behind your head was actually easier than it looked. The song ended. Scattered applause. The guitarist said, "Thanks, I'm Jimmy James," and launched into another song. Chaz spent the next hour watching every move Jimmy made. The way he used feedback as a musical element instead of something to avoid. The way he bent strings to create sounds that shouldn't be possible. The way he played with his teeth and made it look effortless. This wasn't just good, this was revolutionary. During a break, Chaz approached the stage. "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?"
Jimmy looked down at him, cautious. Musicians get approached in clubs all the time by people wanting something. "Sure, man, what's up?" "I'm Chaz Chandler. I play bass for the Animals." Jimmy's face lit up. "The Animals? House of the Rising Sun? That's one of my favorite songs, man." They talked for 20 minutes. Chaz learned that Jimmy was 23 years old, from Seattle, had been playing guitar since he was a kid. He'd played backup for Little Richard, the Islesy Brothers, Curtis Knight, anyone who'd hire him. He was broke, living in a tiny apartment, playing dive clubs for $25 a night. He had talent that should have made him a star years ago, but nobody in America seemed to notice or care. "Have you ever thought about going to London?" Chaz asked. Jimmy looked confused. "London? I can barely afford rent to New York." "I'm moving into management," Chaz said. "I'm looking for artists to work with. I think you could be huge in England. The music scene there is ready for someone like you. I could get you gigs, studio time, introduce you to the right people." Jimmy was skeptical. He'd heard promises before from people who claimed they'd make him a star. "What's the catch?" "No catch," Chaz said. "I quit the Animals tonight, basically. I'm done performing. But watching you play, I realized this is what I want to do next. I want to help you become what you should be." "Why me?" Jimmy asked. "There's a lot of guitarists in New York." Chaz looked at him seriously. "Because in 30 seconds of watching you play, I knew you were the best guitarist I'd ever seen. And I've played with some of the greatest musicians in the world. You're not just better than them, you're different from them. You're doing things nobody else is doing."
Jimmy didn't answer right away. This was big. Moving to London meant leaving everything familiar, betting his entire future on this British bass player he'd just met. But Chaz had something Jimmy recognized: genuine belief. Chaz wasn't trying to exploit him. Chaz believed in him. "Let me think about it," Jimmy said. "Think fast," Chaz replied. "I'm flying to London in 3 days. If you want to come, I'll buy your ticket. If not, I'll find someone else. But I don't want to find someone else. I want you." For the next 2 days, Chaz went back to Café Watt every night to watch Jimmy play. Each night reinforced his certainty. This was the guy. This was the artist who would define the next era of rock music. Chaz could feel it. On the third night, after the show, Jimmy approached Chaz. "I'll go. To London. Let's do this." Chaz grinned. "You won't regret it." "I hope not," Jimmy said. "I'm giving up everything here for this." "You're not giving up anything," Chaz corrected him. "You're trading dive clubs and backup gigs for the chance to be a star. Trust me." September 24, 1966, Chaz Chandler and Jimmy James boarded a BOAC flight to London. Jimmy had never been to Europe. He'd barely been outside of Seattle and New York. He sat in coach class. Chaz couldn't afford first class anymore since he'd quit his main source of income. Clutching his guitar case, looking out the window at the clouds, terrified and excited in equal measure. Chaz spent the 8-hour flight explaining his vision in detail,
They'd find a bassist and drummer, form a proper band, rehearse until they were tight, get them into clubs, record demos, build buzz through word of mouth. The British music scene loved American blues and R&B. That's how the Animals had started. A black American guitarist with Jimi's talent would be embraced immediately. British audiences were hungry for authenticity, and Jimi had authenticity by the truckload.
But you need to understand, Chaz said seriously. London is competitive. Every club has great guitarists. You're going to be competing with Clapton, Beck, Page, guys who are already famous. You need to be better, and you are better, but you need to show it every single night. Jimi nodded, understanding the pressure. I'll work. I'll practice. I'll be ready. One thing, Chaz said. We need to change your name. Jimi James sounds too generic, too forgettable. People won't remember it. What should I call myself? What's your real name? James Marshall Hendrix? Chaz thought for a moment, tapping his fingers on the armrest. Hendrix is good, strong, unique, not common. But James is too common. There's a million Jameses. What about Jimi, spelled J-I-M-I? Make it distinctive. Make it memorable. Jimi Hendrix. Jimi, now Jimi, said slowly, testing how it sounded. Jimi Hendrix. Yeah, I like it. It sounds different. Jimi Hendrix, Chaz repeated, feeling the rightness of it. Yeah, that's a name people will remember. That's a name that looks good on a poster. In London, Chaz immediately started setting up gigs for Jimi. He called in every favor he had from his years with the Animals. He introduced Jimi to club owners, to musicians, to anyone who might help. He used his own money, savings from years of touring, to fund everything. Equipment, rehearsal space, living expenses for Jimi. Chaz's friends thought he was crazy. You quit the Animals to manage some unknown guitarist nobody's heard of? You're throwing your career away.
But Chaz knew. He'd seen something in that basement in New York that nobody else understood yet. He was betting everything on it. Within weeks, Chaz had assembled the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Jimi on guitar and vocals, Noel Redding on bass, Mitch Mitchell on drums. They rehearsed constantly, developing their sound. Chaz used his industry connections to get them gigs at small London clubs. The first show was October 13th, 1966, at the Scotch of St. James Club. About 50 people attended. Jimi was nervous. This was his debut as a frontman, not a backup player. Chaz stood in the back, watching. When Jimi started playing, the room went silent, then erupted. By the end of the first song, everyone was pressed against the stage. By the end of the set, people were calling their friends. Get down here right now. There's a guitarist you have to see. Word spread through London's music scene like wildfire. Eric Clapton came to see Jimi, Jeff Beck, Pete Townsend, Paul McCartney, and the Beatles. Every major musician in London showed up to witness this American guitarist who was doing things nobody had seen before. Chaz watched it all happen exactly as he'd envisioned. Within 3 months of discovering Jimi at Cathay Wa, he'd turned an unknown backup guitarist into the most talked-about musician in London. December 1966, Hey Joe was released as Jimi's first single. It went to number 6 on the UK charts. March 1967, Purple Haze reached number 3. May 1967, Are You Experienced album was released to massive critical and commercial success. Chaz Chandler had quit the Animals, one of the biggest bands in the world, to manage a guitarist he'd watched for 30 seconds in a basement club. Everyone thought he was insane. In less than a year, he'd proven them all wrong.
Years later, after Jimi had become the most famous guitarist in the world, interviewers would ask Chaz about that September night at Cathay Wa. How did you know? How could you be so certain after 30 seconds? Chaz's answer was always the same. When you see something truly great, you don't need a long time to recognize it. In 30 seconds, I heard things in Jimmy's playing that I'd never heard from anyone. Every decision after that was just logic. If he was that good playing backup in a dive club, imagine what he could be with proper support, proper band, proper exposure. But you quit the Animals, interviewers would press. You gave up being a rock star yourself to manage someone else. Do you regret it? Chaz would smile. I was tired of being a bass player in a band. But helping Jimmy become Jimi Hendrix, that was the most important thing I ever did. The Animals had hit records. We were famous. But Jimmy changed music. He changed what people thought was possible with a guitar. Being part of that was worth more than any bass line I ever played. In a 1990 interview, shortly before his death, Chaz reflected on the discovery. People ask if I'm sad that I quit performing to manage Jimmy. They don't understand. I wasn't quitting music, I was finding my real role in music. I was a good bass player. There's thousands of good bass players. But there was only one Jimi Hendrix, and I got to be the person who brought him to the world. That's not giving something up. That's finding your purpose. The Animals continued without Chaz, but they were never the same. They broke up in 1966, the same year Chaz discovered Jimmy. Meanwhile, Jimmy became the most influential guitarist in rock history, and Chaz became one of the most respected managers in the industry.
But it all came down to that September night at Cafe Wah. 30 seconds of watching an unknown guitarist play Hey Joe in a basement club. 30 seconds that made Chaz Chandler quit everything he'd built to pursue something he couldn't even fully articulate yet. Just a certainty that he'd witnessed greatness. The Animals were a huge band, hit records, sold-out tours, fame and fortune, until Chaz Chandler heard Jimi Hendrix play one song in a club nobody had heard of. Then he quit everything, the band, the fame, the performing career, to bet on a guitarist playing for $25 a night. His confession, years later, wasn't regret or second thoughts. It was joy. I quit the Animals to find Jimi Hendrix, Chaz said in his final interview. And Jimi Hendrix found me right when I needed a reason to keep believing in music. We saved each other, really. I gave him the world. He gave me purpose. If this story of recognition and purpose moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Share this with someone who understands that sometimes quitting everything is the bravest choice you can make. Have you ever walked away from success to pursue something greater? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like this video for more untold stories of the discoveries that changed music history.